Couples who have broken up because of a third person that did not involve cheating. What happened? 30-year-old partner of 8 years joined a band with some 20-year-olds. They convinced him that they will never get big if they have long-term partners holding them back. 20 years later, still not big. Never made it as a musician. Taking relationship advice from 20-year-olds is not on my to-do list. Not to mention a 20-year-old who thinks he can make it big in one of the most competitive and oversaturated industries in the world. I mean, somebody's gotta make it big. Just takes 100,000 or so bands that believe they will, and one of them will be right. I know a few who divorced because of the in-laws. Sometimes a person's family is too crazy. Had a friend who broke it off with her fiance because her mother-in-law to be was so hostile and he refused to do anything about it or break off contact. This boggles my mind. I was dating a girl a few years ago who was fairly heavily tattooed, as I am. My mom made a few disparaging comments about women and tattoos while I wasn't around. When I found out, I called my mom and demanded that she pick up the phone and call my GF and apologize to her. That texting would not be good enough. Call and apologize for real. She did. My ex appreciated it, and I respected my mom for doing it. All of our parents are just people. They will make mistakes, just like we'll make mistakes. I'll never understand people who refuse to / cannot talk to their parents like equals. Boggles my mind. His friend liked me. I had no interest in his friend, and made this very clear. Not sure what the logic was. How dare you? Worst part was he ghosted me and had the friend who liked me tell me he was no longer interested, as if I'd fall into his friend's arms. You think that was the game all along? You get with the first dude, then when he ditches, the second dude tries to comfort you? Could have been either that or a complete lack in trust in both of us and wanted to prove he was right not to. No cheating, but it really seemed like she was in love with her best friend. She bent over backwards for this woman constantly, and yet every time she'd talk about her to me it never seemed to be anything remotely positive. I never could understand why she was persisting with their friendship. Plus always bad-mouthing whoever her friend was dating. Some may have deserved it, but it started to feel like a pattern, like she was jealous. I never asked or accused any of this, but 6 months in, it should have been sooner. It was finally crystal clear to me I wasn't going to get anywhere near the level of effort I was giving, or even half of the output she was putting into this girl. Called it off, and really felt quite good to end it. Epilogue, about 4 or 5 months ago, 2 years after I ended things, and not a word to each other since. I walked into a banh mi shop to place an order, went to wait outside since it was busy, glanced up and at a table outside, I noticed her friend. Then a familiar blonde ponytail with their back to me. Not at all interested in any interaction, even accidental. I went back into the shop, picked up my sandwich, walked a different way out of the shop to avoid passing them. Later that night at the pub, I get a private phone call. Ignore. Call again a few minutes later. Ignore. Get a voicemail. It's the friend saying to leave the ex alone, or she'd have to go to the police. I was confused, but really couldn't do anything but laugh it off and move on with my day. Frankly, they deserve each other. What the heck, man? What a weird turn of events. Part of me wants to know what that was all about in the end. But I'm glad you just stuck that whole situation in a warehouse in your mind like the ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark. This idiot life coach, she's known since high school. I can't blame him for everything, but this more unjust coach to shreds my marriage of 23 years. Ha. My friend's mother in her 40s went to a psychic who told her her kids and husband were holding her back. So she got divorced, left the kids with dad, and everything good in the whole family's life tanked. Mom never found what it was that she was supposedly held back from. She now has shacked up with a random guy and just kind of works dead-end jobs. Dad got depressed, started drinking, and lost his cushy job in public government. He doesn't have a job now, and prospects are dim for a high school educated man in his 50s. He did get married to a new woman who was decent to his kids. Older daughter, my friend, ended up homeless after high school and kind of drifted. She found a wonderful husband and they make ends meet. Little sister made it to art school, but works retail while she thinks about what's next. I was dating a divorced single mom. Her ex-husband was petty as all hell. Anytime we had something special planned, he would decide that was the perfect time to drum up drama, or discuss amending their co-parenting agreement, and so on. She was a good mom, but had no boundaries where her ex was concerned. After several months, I realized that our relationship was third in line behind her kids and her ex. Kids coming first is fine, but that wasn't for me, so I kindly broke it off. We never spoke again, so I do not know if she ever enacted reasonable boundaries, or if he is still sabotaging her still to this day. The hardest part about dating someone with kids is the other parent. If the other parent is a monster, it is going to be exponentially harder than it needs to be. Edit. Typo. The hardest part about dating someone with kids is the other parent. 10,000% this. My friend finally realized that he was also going to end up marrying her asshole ex-husband too. The way he was always there, he noped out. I was in a long distance relationship with the eldest son of a family from the south of Italy for 3 years. I'm not Italian. Italians reading this already know where this is going. We met in Milan when I was there for work, and he was visiting friends. We would try to meet once a month in my country and different cities in Italy. After some time, he invited me to meet his family and we started to stay at his family's house. To say his mother wasn't a fan is an understatement. Loved his dad though. Great man. I didn't really speak Italian. I took lessons, but their accent made it hard to follow. She would occasionally burst into our room, screaming her head off at me in Italian, me, deer in headlights, hide or take my stuff, and make things difficult. Knowing that we would have to take her in later in life, him being the eldest son and traditions being what they are, made it easier for me when it ended. Old school Italian women can be difficult to deal with if you're not Italian. My mom married into a family like that. My stepdad's mother lived in the house, 500 square feet, so more than enough room, and made my life hell. When I was applying to colleges, I'd never get any responses at all. Come to find out, she was shredding all my mail, which made figuring out where I was going to school very difficult. His mother, she was so overbearing I felt like I was dating her too. He and I weren't together long. I saw where it was going and bailed early. Had a similar experience, though it didn't lead to the breakup. My ex and I met online, and her mom in particular didn't trust me whatsoever because of her meeting me online. This was after we had already met and hung out a number of times. Her dad was cool with me and would talk with me all the time. Her mom wouldn't let me inside ever. The one night her and her dad convinced her mom to let me come over for dinner. Her mom would not let me out of her sight for even a second and kept asking me questions, almost like she was trying to catch me in a lie or whatever. Her dad offered me to sleep on the couch. Her mom refused and made me sleep out back. Never went back there. Even when her dad invited me, his would randomly show up on dates, including our first one, and would call to give me advice on how to take care of her son. I never even gave the woman my number. The final straw was when she showed up at my house with his kids because she wanted me to babysit them. I'd never met these kids. It was a casual, non-marriage bound relationship. Didn't stop her from thinking I needed to get to know my future children. This was literally the 2-month mark of a very causal relationship. That was also the end of it. I told her to leave, broke up with him by text, and blocked them both. My son-to-be ex-husband wouldn't stop accusing me of cheat on him with my best friend. We are both female and have never done anything to cause him to think that. He seems to think I'm divorcing him because he was right and I must have cheated. Absolutely delusional. Definitely seems like some kind of deep-seated insecurity. Here, people will insist it's projection, which it very well might be, but could be plenty of other things going on too. For example, I could see this being a self-esteem thing, where he can't believe someone like you would love a wretch like him without strings attached, so he invents some strings. Either way, sounds like the dude could benefit from some therapy, though I doubt that's news to you. Her sister forced herself on me and said that I initiated. I was the first to push her off me. but no one believed me and I was outcasted by her family. 3 months later my now ex-GF tells me how she caught her drunk sister spilling the beans about she made a whole facade to break us up. Did she ask to get back together? I bet he stayed away from her mainly due to said sister. And the fact she sided W her sister, who she must know well and know is capable of this, over her partner. My own mother. She had surgery and did absolutely everything to break us apart as she needed help. It's been 4 months and I can't ever forgive my mother. That's disgusting. Some people are so merciful with family. You try to think that your own family would be good and supportive. I learned the hard way unfortunately. Mom tried to turn it into a competition with the woman I love, and that woman left. Girlfriend didn't even tell me till she sent an email a month after the fact. I'm still devastated to be honest with you. Teenage girlfriend. She would constantly talk about her best friend and how great he is. She was genuinely in love with him, but wouldn't admit it. So I asked him what he thought about her, and he was also in love with my girlfriend. So I went to my girlfriend the next day and broke up and had a little fight over it. I told her all about how I know she is in love with her best friend, but is too afraid to ask him out because she fears he doesn't reciprocate and doesn't want to ruin the friendship. Then I told her that he is also in love with her and feared the same thing. That was 15 years ago today and I know they are still together. I'm happy for them. That's really nice of you. It's entirely possible they never would have figured it out for themselves. Her roommate was jealous my GF was in a relationship and she wasn't. She undermined everything for months until they were away together for a couple days, and as soon as my GF was back in town she called me to end it. Everything she said in the breakup didn't make sense, but it was all from the perspective of the roommate. Hey, I had that happen too. Fucks with your head, eh? In the end, if all it takes for someone to break up with you is a jealous friend, what else do you want to risk building a life with her anyways? At least that's how I saw it. He kept accusing me of sleeping with this one particular guy friend. He's never seen the friend or met anyone that knew him. In fact, this guy friend lived on the other coast. Kept accusing me of riding all over that D, which is super gross honestly, because although that friend is conventionally attractive, we never saw each other like that. X's paranoia grew so much he was constantly stalking this guy friend and imagining crazy ass that he would accuse me of doing with him in bed. It felt like mental sexual assault because I never even considered kissing this person and vice versa. We are just college classmates. Eventually, he did not allow me to talk to anyone who ever knew this friend, which is everyone I went to college with. Escalated to him putting his hands on me because the more I denied it the more of a liar he thought I was. This sounds very much like my ex. He insisted that I was cheating / planning to cheat with a friend of his and that he, my ex, was my second choice, and I really wanted to get to the friend through him. I had only ever had one conversation with said friend and knew my boyfriend way before I knew his friend. So weird how people can get obsessive over their own ideas. What a ref weirdo. And what a shame he missed out on you over his own wrong thoughts. Every guy she has ever dated had cheated on her. Her grandfather cheated on her grandmother, and her father cheated on her mother, this one while we were together. As a result, she was incredibly insecure and made me cut out all of my female friends. I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells around any women, including cashiers at the supermarket, even when I was alone. She got mad about one of my neighbors being friendly to me a couple of times, not like in a secret side conversation. I mean while my neighbors, a couple, and my ex, and I were all in a group chat. Eventually I couldn't take it anymore. We had a fight about it. I took a week away, talked to friends, family and my therapist, and realized I had been developing secondary trauma from it all and ended it. I still loved her, but it was F me up. I found out through the grapevine that she was eventually diagnosed with PTSD. For all the cheating and a history of abuse too, is getting professional help, and she's with a new guy. Hopefully she's doing okay. Had a similar ex, but it turned out she wasn't being serially cheated on. She'd get crazy, constantly make accusations of me, all past BS, cheating, like the meme of a girl dreaming she was cheated on then making the guy apologize in real life. Yeah, she actually did that regularly. Then she gets dumped because I, or previous guys, couldn't take it. She'd then get embarrassed that she was dumped and claim she was still together with whoever just dumped her. So fast forward 2 years, I started dating someone else. Suddenly a large portion of my friend group went apeshit that I was cheating on my ex and massive drama ensued. She had been telling them we were still dating the last 2 years. My husband, I and his sister started living together during the lockdown. I started to realize things. How I did not have any friends anymore. I finally had a chance to compare how she interacted with me and how he did. I started to notice more emotional abuse. She and I started to hang out more, and he became more and more distant. In the end, I divorced him. Do not talk to either of them. Even though I'm thankful to her. Why don't you talk to her? Edit. My bad, I thought it was Op's sister that moved in. Wanted to move on completely from the past relationships. And he is still her brother, so she will be close to him. She had a psycho mother who would poke her head into every aspect of our relationship. At one point her mom was going to work and watching me on the security cameras from the time I woke up until I went to work or bed. I only found out later it was so. When I left, she would bring my girlfriend at the time's ex over to try and force me out of the situation. He was abusive, unkept, unemployed but easily controlled by her mom to do anything she wanted. He also was / is known for selling her nudes for cash. The tipping point was when her mom forcibly moved back into the house she was no longer paying for, then began stealing groceries, money, and medical cannabis to take to her other daughter, unemployed high school dropout with 3 kids, called her mom out. She spit on my face and called me selfish. I haven't spoken to that ex since, and looking back I can't believe I even put myself through it. Her and her family were equally insane. Also found out after everything ended that my ex and her ex, the guy who would sneak over, were responsible for the death of their 1-month child but never charged. The world's kind of fucked up sometimes. My mother-in-law, she divorced to need a spot to live, so she moved in with us. She was very intrusive in our lives and relationship. Within a year, we also divorced. The girl best friend that acted more like a toxic mill than a friend of a grown man. I only met her briefly like once. She had no reason to dislike me, but she threw a fit when he gave me a key. A big romantic moment for us, and she planted doubt in his head that he was moving too fast. We got pregnant, and she told him I wasn't actually pregnant. Wasn't his baby, if I was etc. Also planted doubt and made him extremely distant for the first 3 months of our first pregnancy. We were dealing with postpartum during our 3rd child and she convinced him I was controlling and ruined all his friendships. What ruined all his friendships was having 3 infants / toddlers. I didn't care if he hung out with friends. She never came to visit, never brought gifts for the kids, never tried to know me, but she had weird overly affectionate pet names for my kids because she loved anything that was part of him. Anyway, she eventually convinced him to leave me, and he says stuff like I can't just choose my loyalty between my friend of several decades and you. I have never urged him to choose. She did. Also, she never wanted to date him. Never attempted anything. Very strange. This sounds but similar to my situation, except we are not far off in the relationship yet. My boyfriend's female best friend is also making me very uncomfortable and is acting quite disrespectful to me. May I ask, how do you handle the situation? Have you ever thought of asking him to cut her off? He ended up leaving me when I had our 3rd baby because she told him my postpartum depression shouldn't be bringing him down. It's been over a year and they don't date or anything. She just purely wanted to ruin our relationship and she succeeded. Interracial relationship. Her mom was very against it. Didn't know this early on. Became a big issue. Broke up over it for almost 2 years. Been back together 5 years and married for 5 years. I was in one. The amount of S the world gave us made it a nightmare. Sorry to hear it. That's a shame. I'm in an interracial relationship as well. Fiancé is Mexican / African, and I'm white as driven snow, and we have never had an issue. But we live in Southern California, so it's really commonplace here. Guessing you may live somewhere where it's more rare. There's a reason you never date a mama's boy. You will never, ever win in that scenario. Have a friend about to get engaged with a guy like that. She got tired of him always siding with his mother on everything, causing the mother having an effective control of their relationship. So she broke up with him. I used to know a mama's girl who would get into relationships, but her mom would always hate the guy and she would dump them on her mom's advice. She's in her 50s now and alone because of her controlling mom. Her mom was always trying to hook me up with her daughter too. I stayed away because I know I'd end up under her mom's thumb from day one if I got involved with her. His mom was the third person. Need I say more? Is this that he let his mom do whatever they wanted? Let them influence his decisions and perspectives? Mom was just rude overall, or he couldn't stand up to mom kind of thing. He was still in love with his ex. I found out. He got scary mad as he left. Edit. Guess it was emotional cheating. I honestly hadn't seen it that way, probably because I didn't want to. But yeah, it wasn't just well managed feelings. Isn't that emotional cheating? Edit. Lol, genuinely asking a question equals DOWNVOTES 8. Is it emotional cheating if the other person being listed after doesn't know? It's a good question. I feel like if you don't ignore your feelings and still love someone and continue dating someone else, maybe. I was just asking. Her son, he was 9. He was a brat and would bully other kids. We went to a birthday party and he punched another kid, and I got mad at him and made him sit with me the rest of the party. Well, his mom lost her ass and told me I'm not allowed to discipline his son and that I'm not his father. I broke up with her right there, and glad I did. Her kid ended up in juvie for stabbing someone. Mom is little psycho. Regular at her bar. Would help out when it got busy. Always there. Sat and chatted constantly. Would be buddy when I was there to help out or visit and have a beer when it was slow. But as soon as I left he would badmouth me. When you hear it every day constantly you start to believe it. Long story short, the relationship ended. He was the good guy, I wasn't. She gave him a chance, found out has a slug, and apologized to me profusely for everything. Said she reached out and tried to clear my name to those mutuals she badmouthed me to, and moved closer to her parents to restart. The guy ended up marrying one of his buddy's girlfriends. Ike. A toxic friend who openly prided herself on ruining relationships that shouldn't work out. Really, she just took my ex-fiancé out and spewed toxic nonsense in her ear about how I'm not doing enough for her and she should look elsewhere. Sister's ex. His mom and brother had him, and just him, for a weekend and started pointing out all the shitty stuff my sister does. He left her 2 weeks later. I don't blame him in the slightest. She is a shitty person.